You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, all you weirdos, and welcome back to the Best Comics of the Week show here on the Weird Science YouTube channel. And usually I'm joined by my man Gray. I am not joined by my man Gray this week. He has personal things to deal with. He's hanging out with a buddy of his, and that means I'm kicked to the curb. This is what always happens to me. I get kicked, some fancier person shows up. Next thing you know, I'm talking about comics all by myself, and that's just kind of a joke. But I kind of wish that he was here because he fancies up the show a lot. And when it's just me, you're going to get a lot of lame jokes and weird references. But hey, that's how we're going to roll here, where we're talking about the best new comics of the week. That was the 16th if you're DC, 17th for everybody else. That's going to change this summer. And I don't know. I kind of like that 16th and 17th. I like the Tuesday and Wednesday, but it might be easier when it's all on a Wednesday. And I know a lot of people end up just going on Wednesday and picking up everything anyway. So, we'll see how that goes. But just to set up, that's what days we're talking about. I don't think it really matters. But in this, I'm going to give you my picks of the best of the week. Obviously, they may not be your picks, and I wouldn't expect them to all be your picks, but I'm not going to throw shade at anyone. Hopefully you give me that courtesy as well as we go through these, because I would love to hear what you think are the best new comics of the week, because as I say each and every week, it gives people an idea of maybe something came out that they didn't realize, they don't know about, and then go and check it out. And I don't know if you know this, but the comics industry is hurting right now. Yeah, there's a lot of, kind of not so great books, but there always is some good books to be had. And that's why we do the show, and maybe we can kind of rally together and grab all those good books. And so we're going to jump into this, and I'm going to start with DC Comics. And I'll tell you that, also on the side, I just got done talking for our weekly DC Comics podcast. It does come out every Sunday night, by the way, and I will have a video here on YouTube as well. But we ended up talking about 4 hours about the stuff, and it was one of the weeks where I didn't mind talking 4 hours because I did like a bunch of the DC Comics, and actually have 4 picks from DC, which is the most that I've had since we started the show here on the channel. So it's kind of cool. I'm going to start with Batman Superman World's Finest number 26, written by Mark Waid, art by Dan Mora. I know that some people have a problem with Mark Waid. I'm not going to tell you shouldn't. But again, I don't think that you got to tell other people that they should. I mean, that's your personal decision. And if that's the case, all the power to you. I ended up liking this book, and I have liked the Batman Superman World's Finest and issue number 26 that includes the fifth dimensional imps. I was worried about it. Yeah, it's a book that is kind of a goofy Silver Age feeling type of deal, but the imps can get a little wonky and things like that. But first off, Dan Mora's art's incredible. So you got that. That's a win. But also, I think Mark Waid did a little bit more than I expected, because if he ends up, or any writer ends up having these fifth dimensional imps, Bat, Mike, Nixie, all them, they show up. You don't really have to do that much. You can just goof off and have crazy things happen, and nobody is going to criticize you, because that's what usually happens. But what I thought was good about this, and I actually was very impressed, was that Mark Waid ends up doing a bit of character work, especially for Batmite. And I don't remember really ever doing that much like that. Now, it's not going to, end up changing the world or anything. It's not a mind bender, but you end up having Nixie go off with Batman, and Batmite go off with Superman, because, you don't want to have each other annoying things. So you end up Batmite, especially, who's the big fanboy of Batman. He's with Superman. And at one point, they kind of run into some trouble, and Superman starts talking to Batman, and Batman even's like, oh man, if Batman was here, he could solve everything. He's the greatest. And Superman says, you know what? He is the greatest. But then says, hey, Batmite, you might be coming on a little too strong with the fanboy stuff. That's not what Batman's into. Batman needs assets. He doesn't need fanboys. And maybe if you want to be accepted, because he says, you want acceptance, right? He's like, yeah, that's all I want. I want Batman to accept me. I want Batman to like me. And Superman says, you kind of going at it the wrong way. Be an asset. Do stuff to help him. I think it might just be obviously for this arc, but I'd like to have a little progression. I mean, even if they are fifth-dimensional imps and they're goofy or whatnot, nothing's stopping them from growing a little and learning some stuff. And I think it was a really cool play. And then you get the art, which I already said was incredible. But you have a point where Superman, because he's not good with magic, he ends up asking Batman, please give me some armor of some sort. Now, we've seen Batman or Superman in armor in a lot of different things, especially recently. But it's funny because you end up, Batman's like, okay, bada bing, bada boom. And you end up where Superman then has bat armor on. And Batman says, and Superman, the look on his face, like, this is bat armor, isn't it? He's like, yeah, I kind of was getting that for his birthday kind of deal. It was going to be a gift to Batman, so don't get it up. But it was fun. But the big story is that somebody's killing off the good fifth dimensional imps. We ended up seeing the Green Lantern / Green Arrow imp. He bit the dust, and they're worried, and there's some shadowy figure that's setting all of this up. And what they're doing is giving the villains some might, some imps, and you get some that, a parasite might. You never would have seen that. We get to see it. It's pretty cool. And that's what this book has kind of done when it does things right, is having these kind of characters that you don't see a lot of. At one point, say the Doom Patrol, you ended up getting like the Outsiders team, all these things kind of in there where I do like, and this seems pretty cool overall. I hope that it continues with this idea of a little character progression for characters that rarely get that in those imps, but I really did like it. Again, the art is incredible, but enough of that one. We're going to move on to the next book, and it is still a Batman book. It's Batman Offworld, #4, written by Jason Aaron, art by Doug Mankey. And this was a book that was delayed. It was delayed quite a bit. While that was the case, I realized how much I liked this book because when it ends up showing up this week, I'm a guy who forgets everything. Ask my wife. I mean, she'll tell you all the things that I forget, but I could jump right back in. And it's not just because it's a simple story. It's because I liked it so much that everything sunk in. I love Punchbot. I love Batman doing his little Guardians of the Galaxy team in a story where he could have went back to Gotham and kind of been satisfied. He ended up going out into the stars to learn how to fight aliens because they had shown up, and this is something Batman would do. Oh my God, there's aliens. I need to learn how to fight them because one means more is going to come. So he goes up, and he kind of did what he was going to do. You ended up having this Captain Sin. He takes him down. He gets a ship, but he realized this Black Sun Mining Corporation is kidnapping kids, and they're kidnapping orphans. Trigger warning for Batman. He hears that, and he can't leave. He says at one point, what kind of Batman would I be if I left now and went back? And this is where he's talking to Ione, the Tamaranian that he likes to smooch, right? And he asked her to stay, but she thinks it's bullcrap because it's more of a like, hey, you want to stay as like work partners? And she's like, I want it to be the lovers. And she takes off. But he's left with Punchbot, who definitely needs a raise, is overworked. He's running the ship that usually takes, hundreds of people to run. It's just Punchbot because I don't think that wolf is doing anything along the lines of keeping that ship going. In fact, the whole play of Batman is there's a no-kill policy. I swear there's like 3 panels where you have Wolf with a head in his jaw. I think he might kill people. Batman's looking the other way. He is looking the other way because, wolf be wolf, I think he would say. Punchbot's great. But the whole play of this, there's a bounty. Batman has made a name for himself. He actually, because of Captain Sin, all these things where he, stole the ship. So you end up where there's a bounty and you get what is the Thanagarian who is going to show up. And if you don't know, Thanagarians are like the Hawk men and women type deal. And this one is known to be like the best bounty hunter. Oh my God, he's going to take him down. He does. He just grabs Batman. Pretty badass. Grabs Batman. And it kind of ends with Ione hearing that is in the process. And I think it's obvious she's going to get involved. But it was really good. The art's really good. And I was glad to have it back. It's a shame that it's only 6 issues, but it might be one of those that maybe that's the perfect amount. I mean, I'm really enjoying it. I would hate to have this get to like issue 14 and say, yeah, this is kind of run dry. We don't need this. It'll end, hopefully, with a banger of the next 2 issues. But we'll move on to the next book. Speaking of bangers, Superman #13. It continues from last week's Action Comics, Joshua Williamson telling his House of Brainiac story. And pretty good. I still enjoy it. I'm not a huge Joshua Williamson fan, I think that he might have gotten not elevated, but he's been given a lot of tasks that I don't think suit his writing style, these big events, and they haven't been great. Some people like Dark Crisis more than me. I mean, maybe you're more of a Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths person, right? Because, that was a weird change, but also Night Terror, stuff like that. But so far, this deal of a House of Brainiac, the first 2 issues, pretty good. I am on board in this issue. You end up having Superman teaming up with Lobo because of that Lobo army led by General Chikal, I think his name was. And when Lobo hears this, he's like, oh my God, but that's my hero. He's this legendary figure from Zarnia, but he disappeared. He ended up taking over the city and disappeared. That is the kind of tie-in to that city was bottled up and Brainiac got it. So that works out. And then you even have the play where you have Lobo and Superman fight. Superman actually goes pretty heavy on Lobo, who then mentions, like, you must be really pissed because you didn't hold back. The thing that worries me, though, is if he didn't hold back, he really didn't even scratch Lobo. Now we have pretty much what you would say an army of Lobos. And at the end, they're kind of facing off. And who knows, it looks like maybe they'll get captured. But that might lead us to what we need to get as Superman getting and facing off against Brainiac. Brainiac in his ship, he has all of pretty much most of the super family. But Lex ends up realizing, hey, I'm going to maybe play Brainiac. It's weird. He wants to really protect his daughter, Lena. So he says, listen, don't do anything to my daughter and I'll give you Superman. I hope that it's one of those plays of he knows that if he gives them Superman, quote unquote, Superman will be able to fight and save them all. It's like his plan. Lexi's got plans on top of schemes. So I think that that's the case. But you do see that something is wrong with Brainiac. He's making what looks like would be the Brainiac Queen. I don't know if it's like he wants to get Sweet Lovin' down, maybe start a family. I don't know why he would, but maybe he does. Or it's just like, I need to get this other thing because I'm overloaded with the info and I'm past my hard drive limit. I got to get the cloud and throw it there. We'll see. We'll see what it's all about. But by the end, you end up seeing Connor and Kara escape their bottle, but they're teeny weeny. They're still shrunk down, which may allow them to sneak around. But really, if you end up having, no alert going, I think that would be crazy. But Rafa Sandoval's art's great. And Josh Williamson is impressing me so far. I'm into the story. Hopefully that continues next week. We get Power Girl, little tie-in, and hopefully the tie-ins are as good. I hate when the tie-ins drag things down, but it is Leah Williams and Power Girl along with Crush. So we'll see. Cross your fingers. I'm not thinking it will be great, but, it could be a surprise. Maybe this will be the story that really shows us that Leah Williams can write a good Power Girl story. We'll see. We shall see. The next book and the last book I have from DC is Jay Garrick, The Flash #6. One of my favorite writers, Jeremy Adams, with art by Diego Orlategui. And this was the finale to Jay Garrick, The Flash, the Golden Age book. I love Jay. I love Judy Garrick, the Boom. I love The Lost Children. The thing is, by the end, you do seem to set up things that can continue. I've been told by a couple of really reliable sources that it ain't going to continue, at least for the time being. Nothing is set up, no talk at all. It's very upsetting. I wish it was like an announcement came this week of, oh yeah, we're going to have Jeremy Adams and Robert Venditti continue the things, whatever it would be. But it doesn't look like that is the case right now. But this issue, it's very quick. When we talked about it on our DC Comics podcast that I just got done recording right before this, my man Eric, he didn't like it as much. And I get it. It felt like some things were kind of like shoved in, but I liked it. I had a smile on my face the whole time. And one of the things that I really like, first off, it's a Jay Garrick book that's on the marquee there. It's been more about Judy. So this one was cool to have Jay saving Judy because he doesn't want to lose his daughter again. And it's one of the things, and I said it on our podcast, where it points out Jeremy Adams gets it. And where you end up having a lot of writers, especially nowadays, where they end up thinking that a overpowered character that everybody kisses their ass with lip service. Oh my God, this character's the greatest. That character's the greatest. They're better than me. They're better than them. That doesn't lead to a lot of heroics because they're just, so good. And you can tell that some of that is just lip service, but it's getting that push. in this, Jay Garrick, he's older, right? He says he has to save his daughter. He's not faster than Wally. He's not faster than Barry. He has to be, but he's not. And he recognizes that. I'm not that fast. He says I'm not even as fast as Judy, but I have to be. That's heroic. That's the heroic moment of saying, I can't do this, but I'm going to. And if I'm not going to succeed, I'm at least going to give it my all, which leads to Jay kind of going all out, overtaxing himself. And by the end, when he does, spoiler alert, he does save his daughter from Dr. Elemental, he goes into a coma. I mean, he really went all out, and then he, pops out of it because of Judy and her Speed Force spark. But all in all, I thought it was really well played. And you get a page at the end that if you like The Lost Children, if you like everything going on with Jeremy Adams in this Golden Age stuff too, it's like that bittersweet deal of you see all these characters. And I love Salem. I love Quiz Kid. Actually, I love all the Lost Children. When you see them there at the picnic and they're hanging out with the Flesh family, like, boy, there could be so many stories. There could be so many things. And again, it reminds me of when Brian Michael Bendis ended up saying that he wanted the identity, Superman's identity deal, where if the identity is revealed to the world, that'll set up 1,000 stories. But the idea of doing something and lessening it to get to those stories isn't what I like. What I like is when you see those kids, it's like it's adding things that are really cool to add those stories, and everything has a smile on your face. And I hope someday that we get some of these kids. I hope that we are able to continue this, but looking at what little sales data you can look at, and stuff didn't sell great. It would be so awesome if it did. But I was even thinking the idea, okay, how about this? We end up having that absolute DC coming down the line. How about we just say that these Lost Children and Jeremy, like they get shoved into that somehow? Could it work? I don't know. It will work for me. But it'd be pretty cool. But I did like this Jay Garrick, The Flash, #6. It was one of those books, and I think the whole series was one that you just kind of had a smile on your face, and it shows you that Jeremy Adams kind of gets it. I did talk to him earlier today, and basically he is frustrated because he wants to do more, and he wants to end up there. And he said, and it's perfect. He said, "I just want to write fun comics." And I said to him, like, "Oh my God, what are you trying to?" ruin everybody's fun. Like the idea that seems the simplest thing. I want to tell fun stories and very much family based. That's what he wants to do, and I'm here for it. But we'll see. The next thing that I know of coming out from him, Flash Gordon, I'll be there. We'll end up reviewing it on here. Maybe I'll even talk to him. Maybe we'll have like him join us here for a little discussion. I don't know. I get nervous talking to people, but that's it for the DC. We're gonna move over to Marvel Comics, which I have one comic, and I'm telling you, I'm teetering on this. This book has to get a little something going here. It's gonna fall off this list, and it is Ultimate Black Panther #3. And it's the middle book. It's so funny that you end up having the Ultimate Spider-Man. Oh my God, everybody loves it. Then you end up having fights with the Ultimate X-Men, but at least it's interesting to fight about it. You have that whole play. Ultimate Black Panther just kind of sits there in the middle. It's like, hey, everybody, I'm still here. It's me, the Ultimate Black Panther, because it's kind of it's just Black Panther. But in this issue, you don't do a ton. You end up having Shuri and Okoye. They kind of fight. You're kind of still wondering which one, if either, are the mole. And it's written by Brian Hill with art by Stefano Caselli, by the way. And so Brian Hill, he seems to be playing the idea, okay, we're going to make Okoye seem kind of like a jerk to Shuri, but Shuri's going to be over the top. And I don't think it's either of them now. We'll see who it is. A lot of people have some picks. I have some people who told me, like, I think it's going to be somebody that we didn't even meet, and they're just going to, that would be a disaster. But the big play here was T'Challa had gone off to possibly, find, take down, fight, whatever, the whole Ra and Khonshu. He got shot down, but he ended up being saved by Killmonger and Storm. And that's the big thing on the cover. It announces, oh my God, Storm and Killmonger, they're in the house. And when you get to it, yeah, they might be, but they're not doing much. You end up having Killmonger kind of like, and I'm saying this in a non-sexy way, kind of undressed T'Challa. You don't know what Africa's like, and you're there in your high horse and your ivory tower, whatever the case may be. But you end up where they go into a Panther temple. Storm's already waiting for them. you end up having where it affects T'Challa's armor in a weird way. And when they get to what appears to be like the basement level, you see what I thought looked very much just a giant glowing moon. Maybe made of vibranium. I don't know. It's just there. You have a bunch of skeletons around. So this is something a lot of people have been trying to get and lost their lives to do. And they're just kind of there. And the worst is, like, that's the big thing. And yeah, I think it's Killmonger's like, I don't know what it is. And I'm like, I don't either. Let's find out. But it's one of those things. I'm reading it and it didn't upset me. And there were a bunch of Marvel books this week that did upset me. So I think I gave it credit that it didn't upset me, but it also didn't wow me. And it's now become, even if you don't like the Ultimate X-Men, I still think that you could say this Ultimate Black Panther is the least interesting of them. There's not much to talk about. There's not really much to argue. Yeah, you can guess who the mole is, but, you know, you're kind of just not getting a lot of information there. So it's a shame. I still like it. I still think that there's a place for it, but it just feels like, you know, it's Ultimate Black Panther, but it does feel just like Black Panther. But again, I'm saying all this like I'm, you know, dissing it. I'm still putting it on the list because I still did like the art. I still like the book, but it is that play where this is it. 3 issues in, I need something more next issue or it might fall off the list. I'm going to go off to indie comics now. And because Gray's not here, he has a little more reach in the indie scene. I have one indie comic, and I don't think that this is going to be a surprise to anybody, but it is Cobra Commander, number 4, written by Joshua Williamson with art by Annalisa Leone and Andrea Milana. They end up having both of those listed here on my sheet. The Energon universe is awesome. I don't think that's a big surprise. That's not a hot take. It's not even a take. It's just me saying what everybody else is saying as well. Cobra Commander, because of my lack of knowledge of Cobra Law and really G.I. Joe in general, but if you're going to know the basics, the Duke book would be the one that you would kind of get drawn to. I'm reading all of them, including Void Rivals, that I sometimes forget. But Cobra Commander was one at the beginning I thought, well, I'm going to read it only because I want to read them all. Yeah, Cobra Commander. At this point and after this issue, I'm like, this is really good. And the idea that Joshua Williamson seems to like have the spark here, you know, and that's not a Transformers pun. The whole deal of him doing this G.I. Joe with Duke and Cobra Commander, like, this seems like a Joshua Williamson who's fired up to tell great stories, and he really is. And this Cobra Commander, the way that he's figured out the way, you could have Cobra Commander come in and just start yelling stuff. He has been used and abused. He has been beat up. He's been cut. But you still end up with all that happening because the fear would be that, Cobra Commander, what a chump. No, even with that, he's been manipulating everyone. He's been doing things. And in this, he ends up finding the scientists that the Dreadnoks had where he's kind of making like kind of a knockoff Energon. He's basically what you do with the cocaines where you cut it and add some things to stretch it out. It actually is a brilliant idea. The scientist, the guy looks like a wreck, so he might be doing the cocaine. Who knows? He might be doing meth. It's not me to judge there. But you end up having him do that. In the meantime, you do end up having Cobra Commander still kind of behind the 8 ball, where he does have Nemesis Enforcer, where he is pretty much, voila, I was kind of, just using you, and we never had plans for you to come to Cobra Law. Why would we accept a lame-o like you? And they end up fighting, and you end up seeing Cobra Commander use those little robots. And somebody did remind me that we had that in the first issue, but they even got charged up by this Energon that you had that scientist do. So he's able to make almost like a Tony Stark, like gauntlet repulsor, and ends up shooting him. But again, overall, this whole play is that Cobra Commander, pretty badass, even when he's getting beaten up. But at the end, when he takes down, these deals, and he ends up saying to the Dreadnoks, who are you supplying this stuff to? Because they're running guns and doing this experiments and stuff. And we find out that it is Destro. That's the big thing at the end that leads us off into the Dan Waters Destro book, obviously, but also what's going on in this Cobra Commander book. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really good. We do have a video on the channel. Maybe I'll link to that one. And if you're wondering, because that's it, those are my books. And I'd love to hear what you guys thought and what you picked for your books of the week, but also just to let everybody know as the thing goes on, I'm going to have more of the indie reviews coming up. We'll see, what sticks, what people like to get, but also I'll be putting up a bunch of DC stuff tomorrow, which would be Sunday as I'm recording. As I said, I just got done doing our DC Comics podcast. So I hope that everybody's enjoying the stuff on the channel. I'm trying to do more and more. I am planning on doing solicit shows for both DC and Marvel stuff this week as well. So look for those. But that is it. Please let me know what you thought your books of the week were. You can even tell me that I'm lame-o, just like Cobra Commander isn't. You could tell me what you thought of the books this week as we get forward and looking forward to next week, which, again, just as a little bit of a promo, I'll also have tomorrow, Sunday night, I will have my most anticipated comics. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of good comics coming out next week. So I'm fired up. So with all that, thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hopefully Gray will join me back next week and get things fancy up in here. But with all that, I will talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.